This is a Power 98.7 podcast. Now we're talking. Subscribe to Power 98.7 podcasts in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. There's more on power987.co.za.
It's 12 minutes past 1 o'clock, 0861987000. The exciting part of the show, it's Food Friday, and it's food nutrition conversation this morning, and we're talking communication with food. Like I said, we've had a terrible relationship with food as a team in the last week, in the last 2 weeks, so much so that we'd snack. Feast is such a big word. We would snack on completely incorrect things at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm proud of us. I mean, I'm drinking water today. So Gomolemo was bringing all the good energies. And I'm making progress. I'm at the... Okay, it's the next day. Does it still qualify? It's my water from yesterday. Yeah. It still qualifies.
Possibly.
It's a good start.
Yes,
it's a good start of the new day. We are in studio this morning with Chef Gomo, and we are talking all things food this morning. I love meeting village girls. Mm-hmm. I love meeting fellow village girls who go and do things that we are not taught about.
Of course.
In the village. And this morning we're chatting to Chef Gomo, Gomolemo Oratile Gopane.
Yes.
And that is our profile this morning, but going to talk to us all about communication with food nutrition, communication with food in particular. Gomo.
Good morning, Thoriso. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
First of all, thank you so much for joining us at 1 o'clock in the morning.
It is such a pleasure. I think one of the things that I got to appreciate a lot about coming to your show this time is the work that you guys do in radio, and just keeping us alive in the radio at 1 o'clock, right? Because sometimes we just cannot sleep at this time. So to have interesting conversation at this hour, it's very pleasuresome. So I appreciate it.
We appreciate you. And I mean, you say this every time people are like, oh no, I couldn't sleep, so I listened to it. I'm like, yo, imagine if I couldn't sleep. I mean, I always imagine myself at home. I could never imagine myself not being able to sleep. Mm-hmm. But then I suppose it's a product of then being tired from other days.
Absolutely.
Of being up at this time. But Gomo,
yes,
tell me about yourself. Where is Gomolemo from?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to all the listeners. My name is Gomolemo Oratile Gopane, and I come from a village called Gopane.
Oh, okay.
Yes, very ironic and interesting, right? Which is in the northwest area.
Okay.
Yes, so that is where my passion of culinary arts began, in the memorable and very intimate space of my grandparents' kitchen. So I still hold it very dear, and it is something that has just groomed, and I've learned to embrace it as I grow. So yeah, that's why you're having me here.
I mean, a lot of us, village children, there's 3 to 10 careers on an exciting day, that you'll get told about.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes, being a chef, for example, is not necessarily presented as one of those options to you from a lower school level. Mm-hmm. Some people, even in villages, are fortunate enough to have home economics, for example.
Absolutely.
As a subject, and are able to. How did yours come about into it? I mean, there's one part in it being talent and passion, or something that you find exciting from, kitchen yabo gogo. But there's also you being able to turn it into a career and having that conversation. How did that come about?
To be honest, it started very young, and I can confidently say my mother has always been supportive of what I want to do, or what I enjoy to do, because from a very young age I could have things in the kitchen like your basmati rice.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, like your different culinary foods, right?
Experimental ingredients.
Exactly. So I would always be in the kitchen and always cooking a feast. And I grew up watching a lot of Siba, of course, who I really love. And from that point going forward, I think with the atmosphere of just having having a home that is very purposeful to the things that we enjoy as kids. So it got to give me the confidence that I'm able to do things. I think also even having to go to a culinary school, it wasn't necessarily because I wanted to. I guess sometimes you just want that that paper, so that when you come to places like this, you know what you're talking about. But I wouldn't necessarily say it started at a certain point, but at a ground level of home. And yes, getting that the structure and the support from my mom, and just always allowing me to cook many things in one day. So I truly appreciate that. And my grandmother, of course.
So you talk about grandparents' kitchen, le mama. What's that meal that you think of back then that they made that just like blew your mind away?
I think with my grandmother, it is how she used to be very precise and so detailed in the food that she prepared, in the sense of, like dijo tsa ko gae, like bodikabu, like how she prepared her eggs, and how in most of her meals everything has always been so balanced and very nutritional, right? And remember, this is us back then, like in a village. You would actually think, Khora, what do they actually know about meals like this? How do they know about pairing foods that are nutritional and healthy? But I saw that in her, and I saw how enthusiastic and very passionate she was about that. And I guess so
100%.
Yes, so I got to see that a lot from her, and I got to appreciate it more. So she would prepare things like bodikabu, merojo, and cabbage, and gomolong, and having that luxury of just having like koko, letlabe, and just enjoying the small things inside. What do you call these whole things that are in there? Yes, those things. So yes, that was very, very pleasuresome, because I got to experiment more, and play around food. Yes.
And then mama?
Oh, well, my mom is such a classy girl. Hey? I don't want to lie. Oh, my mom is just an adorable, sweetheart, hot girl. But she stopped cooking because I started doing it from a very young age. So she, you wouldn't really find my mom in the kitchen, hey? So
I mean, listen. So if I gave birth to a chef, and I had a chef, casually walking around my house, I would not be cooking myself. So I understand her. Let her be a hot girl.
No, she is. I don't do anything type of girl. So, and I like that.
I love that for her.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
I love that for her. Now, your schooling career, before we even go into the food, your schooling career, what did you study?
I studied culinary arts. Well, I studied quite a lot of stuff, but I think for now, let's
now when I know all of it.
Let's keep it at culinary arts. I did went to university to study, and thereafter I went to do my culinary arts.
So what did you start? What was your base? What did you start with?
It was consumer studies.
Okay.
Yes. So then I went, after that, of course, I went to study culinary arts, because I felt like, okay, now that I have done something that, well, it's not very far, it's not far attached to one another, but I still wanted to be full in the kitchen, right, and not really be very theoretical about what I'm studying. I just enjoyed being in the kitchen and doing that. I was going to say and ask, actually, I mean, I know University of Pretoria, for example, they'll have something like food sciences, BSc food sciences, right? Which sometimes I like, how level even like so every year there'd be a concert or something where food science students get the opportunity to can create, a feast almost, for certain people, etc. But it doesn't look like, and remember, I'm an outsider, it doesn't look like it provides what culinary arts gets to provide in terms of that flair, for what the food looks like and how it's served. Absolutely, I agree. That's why I said that I needed to go into a space where it's very practical, and I get to learn like your fine dining of food, because I love that. I love playing with food. I love creating things that are nice on a plate. So having to go to culinary art school, it gave me that privilege to be able to experiment with flavors.
I love that. Yes. I love that. No, I absolutely love that. And then now let's talk about the communication. And I feel so guilty even starting this conversation. Communication with food. Are there such things as food personalities?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that there is something that is called a food personality, because remember, if I can say, we have as we grow up, right, we get to associate food with different things, right? We get to associate, especially for instance, because the main topic here for today is health and nutrition and how we communicate with that. So remember, if you're coming from a background where you don't have the essential knowledge or insight of a particular subject, you tend to put yourself under a certain category. That's why you can easily say personalities of food and. But in simple terms, I think that we eat according to how we the type of relationship or what we understand of food, if I can say.
Okay.
But to have personalities, I wouldn't necessarily say there's something like that. I can easily say that we develop we develop a relationship with food according to what we know.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then that then forming how we communicate
How
with food.
we communicate with food. Because I mean, Thoriso, if for instance, if you see a plate full of broccoli, and this is not something that you have a positive mind about, right? You are not gonna necessarily say, I'm gonna enjoy this type of thing because I do not know how it tastes. I just see it to be ugly, right? And that is why when you are building, like for instance, longevity in the type of food that you're eating, it becomes very daunting because you don't know the different methods of preparation of this type of food, right? Like I made an example of broccoli. You would find that when any other person is trying to get to a place where they say the only method of preparing the broccoli is just boiling or steaming, and you get the vegetable being very mushy and sloppy and that's why we easily say that you're taking out all the nutritional dance of the product, and then you eat something that is soggy and not so good looking, and you feel like I cannot really have I cannot have a relationship with these particular foods. And that's your communication with that particular food, and you start basing your communication with food over something like that.
It's so interesting you say that, because there are foods that I didn't eat growing up. I detested pumpkin growing up. I could not stand the face of broccoli growing up.
Yes.
But broccoli today is one of my favorite things. In fact, even when I start sort of like a clean eating sort of regime,
Absolutely.
it's an easier one for me to sort of get by. But then I notice it's because, like you said, and I don't enjoy, for example, frozen vegetables.
Of course.
But I noticed that there was nothing wrong with the vegetable itself. I don't enjoy soggy things.
Absolutely.
I eat by texture. I enjoy my vegetables crispy
and crunchy
and tasty
and
as
feeling
well,
them, right?
and feeling them like
absolutely.
like can I like broccoli actually has taste.
Yes, it does.
And there's taste to it, and there's so many people who don't eat certain types of foods because how they used to be prepared.
Absolutely.
How do we recover that?
I think firstly, how can I say it? Sometimes just being able to the technique of preparing certain foods, like grilling your vegetables, seasoning your vegetables.
Oh, okay.
Yes, seasoning your vegetables and grilling them, putting stuff like your garlic, your different seasoning, because sometimes you'd find that I cannot, like society says, or under the food category, you cannot put Cajun seasoning with broccoli, right? You cannot have a broccoli, for instance, with a flavor that is very chili and spicy. That's what they say, but you can actually prepare it in many ways than one. Yes. So I think in the preparation of you trying to eat healthily, maybe just do a bit of research in terms of how you can prepare, because right now we don't have anything that is practical to show. But I would say that start off by doing a bit of your grilling, trying different seasonings, grilling, even braising your vegetables is good. Roasting your vegetables, and like I said, with trying out different seasonings for vegetables.
Tell me, when you talk about grilling, because I'm thinking, how are grilling? I'm already thinking about my pan. I'm thinking about a steak. I'm thinking about butter. When we talk about grilling, is it that process of just putting on a dry surface to get the grill out, or does it the pan method, is that grilling? What's
Well,
because I'm like, I hear it like, but I've watched some shows and they're like grill. I'm like, that looks like you're frying.
yeah. But remember, when you are frying, you're using like a lot of oil, right? For instance, when you take a bacon and you fry it, you make sure that there's quite a generous amount of oil in the pan, right? Yes. So when you are making a vegetable, you wouldn't necessarily put like a generous amount of oil. You just need a bit, like a spoon of olive oil, right? Just to make the pan. If you're using a non-stick pan, so it doesn't stick to the product. You can either make it like that. You can use also your cooking spray. You can use your butter. Right? So we do have good alternatives. Even if you just sprinkle a bit of olive oil in your pan and put a bit of water. Not a lot, like a teaspoon. So the water can absorb the product and, yes, give it a good steam and a nice caramelization.
I'm gonna take it to the oils. You started speaking about the oils now. So I've started seeing sort of some, certain types of oils become a little bit more popular in salads and in for some people cooking, etc. Body avocado oil, what oil. Do those bring creativity in the kitchen?
No. Like, to be honest, I guess it's a it's a fancy thing to do.
Okay.
And also looking at the health content of them, right? But also you still have your good on a good budget type of. On a good budget, you can still use your olive oil. You can still use your sunflower. You can still use your canola oil. Right?
Okay.
Yes, but at large, those things are quite luxurious. Sometimes, if you really want to start or even have longevity in your eating plan, remember, because a certain type of oil, like your avocado, and if it's in your household, and when Mamani coming to prepare, they're going to use it because it's 100%.
Avocado oil.
Of course. And that thing is like very expensive. So you need to be quite mindful also, because the whole thing here is that you shouldn't break your bank for you to adopt a good lifestyle. And this is longevity, remember. Start something that you know that you're going to be able to continue, yes, on a daily basis, years to come. And then even though we do have, of course, a fallout in our eating habits, in our states, it happens.
I'm going through that phase in my life right
absolutely. Now. It's normal. I think I am, especially, with the workout. I am too.
Yeah, so. And I think also there's and we'll go into it in terms of busy times and how those sort of boil down to, emotional cycles and busy times. Absolutely. And how those very sort important. Of tend to change your ways around. Chef, how do we deal with those? Because I mean, I battle a lot with that. The minute I'm working extended hours, I'm more likely to have. I mean, I looked at yesterday, I wanted to make a very lovely couscous salad with meatballs. Did I not end up having brown bread with meatballs?
For real?
Because it was easy. I was like, because I'm done making the meatballs, but I don't have the time anymore to make that couscous salad that I wanted to make. So here I am having bread and acha.
That time couscous takes quite like 5 minutes to 10 minutes,
exactly,
right?
You just need to boil water.
And it's
essentially,
done.
And it's done. So how do you work around that? Is meal prepping advisable?
Absolutely. Actually, let me take you back to what you just said.
Yeah.
That's quite a very fundamental thing, because a lot of people don't understand that. Because your emotional state, whatever that you're telling it at that state of how you are feeling, because you said, yesterday I was having a bad day. Did you say a bad day? Sorry, please correct me.
No, I said something along those lines.
Yes,
I definitely said something.
You are not feeling very well.
Yeah, I wasn't my best self.
Absolutely. Because now remember, whatever that we internalize, whatever that we are feeling internally, that current state, it comes out to our physical state, right? The minute you tell yourself, the minute your brain can actually take what is happening internally, is going to give it back externally, right? So that is why it is very important for us to be able to speak to ourselves very gently and politely and clean internally, so that we are able to have that. Because look, if you went to, for instance, you woke up today and you went to work out, or you took a walk, right? Internally, and what you're telling yourself is that I have started my day on a very good slate and a clean slate, right? So I would like to continue my day
in
eating
that fashion.
You understand? You want to align your day according to how you started it. And that's how it is necessary. That's why I always say that we always plan our schedules in terms of, you know, what you have to do at this particular time. But we do not take time to plan our eating schedules.
Which is equally important.
Which is very important. Why do we do that? Because ultimately, we need to serve ourselves the same way we are serving the things that are around us. But we don't allow our inner person that opportunity. And we need, it starts within. And I always say everything starts and ends with food. When you wake up, the first thing that you want to have is food. When you go to bed, you might just grab a grape, you know. So that communication with food for you is very important, because when you eat like toxic type of food or bad food, it actually comes to a place where it just overwhelms you know, and you start not feeling so great about yourself. Many things are not aligned. Your internal state becomes very unclean and a bit polluted, if I can say, if it's the right word. Yes. So that's why
I really appreciate that. And I feel like, you know, in the moment, therapy, where they fetch that part of you that you need to significantly deal with, because I think, you know, I probably fall under the category of some of those people in terms of emotional eaters.
Okay.
Where in a happy state, or I sort of track back to a time where I used to meal prep, for example, and eat as tidily as possible. Not to say I wasn't eating sugar, I wasn't eating carbs, but there was a reduced intake,
absolutely.
right? But there was more vegetables that are being, I was more aware of how my meat is prepared, for example, if I am eating meat, etc.
Okay.
And essentially you're feeling a whole lot better.
Alive and very, like, your vitality is at its peak.
Your
there.
energy is high.
Absolutely, I agree. And I guess because we are easily affected, like I said, by our external and our surroundings, and we forget to give back to ourselves, you know. We forget to give back to ourselves. And food is one of the greatest things that we, like you just mentioned, emotional eating. It's not, I wouldn't say it's something that we can call normal, you know, because in a state where we are going through things, we allow ourselves to be those things, and we eat according to those things, right? So
violence. It's too early.
Sorry.
It's too early for this violence.
I'm sorry. I'm just putting it out there.
Too early. 26 minutes before the top of the hour. We're still in conversation with Chef Gomo this morning, and we're talking food, nutrition, communication with food. Let's talk about people that have fallen off the bandwagon, right? People that have fallen off the bandwagon are trying to sort of start heavy, you know, from day. What does that look like? What as someone who is, you know, skilled and an expert in the field, what does that look like? The restarting.
Okay.
In terms of breakfast, what would that look like? What can't I have? What should I try not to include?
You know, Thoriso, I like to say that you need to, when you get to a point where you believe that you want to start and go back to your healthy eating, going back to a nutritional meal more, I believe that you must do a timeline, right? A timeline is going to help you to know where you are and measure yourself in a period of a week or two. So when you have that timeline, it gives you like a direct plan of what it is that you want. Where are you currently? Where do you want to be? And where do you want to go to, right? So for instance, when you start, I always say that this is something that, for instance, dietitians never do. We need to understand what is the reason that you want to go back to that, right? You need to get to a point where you ask yourself, is this going to make me happy if I do it? Or what is the pressure behind why I want to do that, right? And then getting to where you want to be, how will that make you feel, right? So if we as individuals can get to a point where we get to determine those factors and our whys around why we want to go back there, then it's easy for us to actually get to the point of taking accountability and responsibility in what we eat. But having to start like a clean, going back to your question, that is before, and then we can talk about food. What I would suggest is that because now people are different, you know, you can never, it's not a collective type of answer, but for, let me speak to you directly. You could depending also on your blood type, because these are the
Sure,
things that people don't know, right?
Okay.
It's important for you to know your blood type, because
Emma Belen, when you're talking about blood types, then that requires a test, of course.
that does require a test. Yes, it does require a test, because often we eat according to what we see. For instance, in wherever we get to see these types of diets and but we forget to eat according to our own blood group. So the first thing, if you truly just want to develop longevity in what you're eating, get a blood test.
Yeah.
Figure out which blood group do you fall under.
Yeah.
And thereafter eat according to that. So if you are a positive O, I'm a positive O. You will know that your blood group requires you to have more iron in your dietary, right? And you cannot have a lot of milk and right? But also it doesn't limit you from enjoying other things. So your normal things that you could eat when you want to start eating healthy could be having enough fruits in a day, having good nuts in a day, having more vegetables, right? Yes, vegetables and protein. That is a very balanced meal. In a plate, having good vegetables and a protein, and also skipping days of eating a lot of protein, right? In a week, we've got 7 days. You can have 2 days where you just eat fish. Even if you're not having fish, you can actually just eat vegetables.
Just vegetables.
Right? In a day. Because remember also, eating healthy and having a good nutritional meal on a daily basis is quite costly, right?
It is.
So you try to cut your budget as thin as possible. So in a day, if you can have like an apple, and later on have an assorted of nuts, which are quite pricey, but if you can have 4 in a day, that's a snack. And later on the day, have like a good portion of a meal with a salad. And now at least we've got things like your barleys, your parsley that are now coming back. Barley and your quinoa and your couscous type of foods that are very good. The grain is good. Quinoa has good health benefits, like it has it's a plant-based type of protein. So stuff like that, if you're trying to eat healthy again. And remember also things like your cabbage, mirojo, and all these things, they're still good. It's just
they're still brilliant.
Yes, they're still brilliant. They're still good. It's just that society has just taken that out of our system.
It's so interesting how, you say that, because one of the things that I really don't enjoy that I've seen on social media is things like, poverty food, or dijo tsa tshokolo, or barking. What do they call it? A pov spec. Why do they call them a povo spec or something like that?
I've never seen
and
that.
I'm like, this is so interesting that you guys put this like this, because it's silly that you want to talk like that, because this is where nutritional value comes from. This is also affordable food.
Absolutely.
And in many instances, I look at some of, my grandmother, wajala. There's think of it, it's probably in their yard, And I'll think to myself, like, how guys, you guys are looking down on these things, but then you go to that other black and white retail store and you buy the same things, got 3 million.
You're right.
But now it's more okay to have it.
Because there's a certain like package on it.
Yeah, we come from Fakatavaya organic. Our grandparents have been doing organic. It's not.
I always say that.
It's not something that's new to us. You mentioned something around the blood types, and I immediately went and searched mine, right? So I'm a B.
Oh,
and I'm looking at the things that I should be avoiding, and I have no problem with that. It's things like chicken.
Really?
So what does it say? It says type B, avoid corn, wheat, buckwheat, lentils, tomatoes, peanuts, and sesame seeds. Chicken is also problematic.
Okay.
And then they encourage eating green vegetables, eggs, certain meats, and low-fat dairy. Obviously, there's a whole list, but then there are. I want to just go through a few scenarios. So. If, let's say, we start eating that blight type, how do we find a central point as a family? Because I might be a B,
absolutely,
but my partner is, which is this one that I just saw now, but a type A, where it says, try to have a meat-free diet based on fruits and vegetables.
Okay.
So how do that balance there?
That's a very good question. I like that, because the reality is that you can never cook a lot of food in a household, right?
Sure, I like that. Yeah.
So in your scenario, you've got you said you are a positive O.
I'm a B.
Oh, B, and your partner is a
imaginary partner is a.
I'm so forward. Anyway, so just to simplify that, Thoriso, if your imaginary partner has to eat meat, protein, all right?
Yeah.
And you have to
reduce
your protein. Ultimately, you have to cook vegetables, right?
Essentially. So there is a balance.
So we can never say there's nothing like that. Gape, it is more about an individual, right? We can never always because we just like to put responsibility around us, where else we don't want to take action ourselves. So if you imaginary partner he's eating meat he's eating meat, and you have to reduce your intake, and at the larger pot you're cooking enough vegetables so that it can be yours and he can still enjoy his meal.
You're sorted.
Yes.
But what I'm hearing is also stop making your vegetables bland because you're not making it fun for other people to eat. 0861987000. There's been events where I follow Lent, right? So every year Lent I will go vegan or vegetarian, but meat is always one of the things that I check out.
Absolutely.
And you'll go to events and you'll say, I'm vegetarian, and then you look at a vegetarian offering. The green salad.
Like this, that's the thing. I remember there was a time in my life where I didn't eat any form of like meat and all that. So the best thing that I could do and survive on was to leave the house. Kijile. Never mind. Kijile, because it just reduces a lot of work for you, because this is what I can cater for myself. And I always say this, leave the house ujile, so you don't become a burden to people, your expectations of what you want to eat. And if that's the case, then feta somewhere or like a quinoa salad or whatever the case might be, right? But you still have full control of the things that you consume as an individual.
Absolutely.
You don't have to blame it around to your surroundings and okokaika and blah, blah, blah. Because like I stated, I wasn't eating meat for a particular period in my life and because of obviously my own health reasons, until of course I started dating, and then that's a big challenge, because you dating and then he's eating meat and wakhala.
But we need to talk about that. How dating changes.
It does.
You're eating, it introduces you to a new. Now I'm all of a sudden excited on a random Wednesday.
Things that you'd be like, no way, it's not during
my plans.
Exactly. Or not even during the week, because I used to be quite strict, and that's why I'm saying, these type of conversations are very necessary, because you could be doing this type of work and then suddenly, like now I get those things, oh my God, you've gained so much weight, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it takes a lot just for you to shred it. Right?
It does.
And the minute you become associated to a certain type of negativity, you feel like it's like such a far type of goal for you to reach, right? But it's very important for you to start it small. And remember, the societal standards are a bit heavy on us, because we're forgetting that people go through certain things for them to look in a particular way, right? And being a certain way doesn't mean that you're completely
not
healthy, right?
And I appreciate that so much, because there are people who I remember when I gained weight, and there was a lot of backlash that I got. In fact, to this day, when I go home and there's someone who hasn't seen me in months, yo, how likan? And I'm like, but that's not a greeting. Hello.
Yeah.
But and I think I took it to heart for quite a long time, because it was a product of a pandemic.
Okay.
It was stress eating.
Okay.
It was emotional eating.
Absolutely.
It wasn't because, I reintroduced carbs back into my eating because it was an easier thing to consume. I introduced alcohol.
Yes.
Which is something that I never used to have at all.
I do. I understand.
So before you comment on how people look, or how motare or batla di chips, and before you throw around your words, also sometimes maybe I like that.
Absolutely.
consider what the person may be going through.
Consider that, because remember, we don't just easily get to that place. You know, there are things that build up to be like mountainous in our lives. So if we are not going to be very, very kind, especially also to ourselves, because it's easy for you, Thoriso, to be offended by what Gomolemo is saying if you haven't dealt with it or you're working around it, right? In as much as you can have that confidence and of your reality and your truth and saying, you know what, I'm busy working on this, and whatever or whatever they say, it doesn't really bother me because I know where I am. So that is very important when, especially you starting, if you have gained weight due to the pandemic or whatever that it is that you might be going through. Because remember, an emotion, like an imbalance in our emotions, will automatically make us either gain weight or lose weight, right? So our metabolism is not the same, and our bodies can never react to the same things the same way, right? So you can easily find Gomo who can easily gain weight because of happy, right?
Yes,
and she's still working out.
Absolutely.
Right. So that is normal. And the most painful thing about it is that even if I can still be going to the gym, but if currently I'm whole, I'm complete, I'm whatever, I can easily like gain weight and just keep on expanding, right? And that doesn't mean that I'm not taking good care of myself.
Oh my gosh, I appreciate that so much, Gomolemo, because, and I say that because, I mean, I'm thinking of some of my happiest points. At my happiest points, I was my smallest.
Okay.
You know, in my happiest points, and not because haouj or anything, but because I'm more cautious about what I eat.
Yes.
I gym a little bit more. I'll run.
You're in a very happy state.
Yes.
Like you can go like Boma 4 hours, 2 in the morning, 2 later, 1.
Do you know what I
morning.
mean?
Absolutely, I do. I understand what you're saying, and it's normal. It's truly normal. That is why part of that, when we're talking about emotional and our behavioral states, right? You need to remember, Thoriso, when you are not well internally, there's nothing. You've got an internal interpretation of what you're going through, the scars, the wounds, the disappointments, and it clouds you. Right, so there's no way that in that particular state you can make good decisions around you. That is why we easily say people are toxic. You understand?
Sure.
Because when you are toxic internally, you're gonna be toxic in the things that you even consume in your relationship and because food is one of the easiest things that we go to, because when you are, like I stated, when your internal space is not very clear and clean, you will automatically go to things that look like what you're going through. You understand? So that is just the simple part about it. And I think once we get to understand that, then we can do better for ourselves.
I enjoy that perspective so much.
Yes,
I enjoy that perspective so much. I enjoy, and I hope that it's also landing for you at home, for you at work right now, in terms of how some of the food we pick is as a result of the things that we're going through internally.
Yes. Our internal interpretation of how we are in that particular state will result in the things that we also consume. That is why you can eat ngaring. If I can say, you can easily eat what is this, like burgers.
Yeah,
you can eat this.
Or go through an entire packet of chips, like a big packet of chips,
right? While you're just there, you're just thinking about, oh my God, I can't believe this is what I'm going through. Oh my God, it's just the result of the internal part not being in a very clean and whole place. When you're not pure inside, you can never expect anything outside to be that
way,
because you're not working to make it pure and clean. So it is not a miracle. It is work that we have to do on a continuous basis, and also being very sober about it. I'm not saying that every person who is eating like that is going through that particular state. There are people that generally just want to eat unhealthy, right? But it is also very questionable, because if you're gonna find somebody who is, I'm sorry to say this because I don't like to say words like this, but if you're gonna find somebody who's very oversized or obese, it is these are the things, when you get into conversation with them, you get to learn that what is it that they're going through.
Or
right?
how it started, or where it
Or
started.
how it started, Tori. So that is why earlier on I mentioned the timeline. Because in the timeline of where you are, it details everything. Okay, I am here because of 1, 2, 3. Right? We go through traumas, we go through this, we go through that. And because food is one of the most powerful and the most comforting thing, you know, we find our affection in food, right? Like, we find our answers sometimes in food. That is why you just said, I can finish a whole packet of chips by myself. I can eat a whole ice cream because I feel like I'm finding my answers in this. Because whatever that it is that you want to confront, sometimes they cannot even give you the solid answers that you need.
And it's so sad because you feel okay, right, for the first 2 minutes, and then you feel terrible about yourself even more for what you chose to go eat.
Absolutely.
Now it's like an unending cycle.
It's a very vicious cycle, because you're going to sleep and then you wake up tomorrow and you're probably going to be in the same state again. And it's very important also because for what it does to our mental health, right? Because we don't know how to deal with things. That is why people compensate on the food they eat, right?
Or even develop eating disorders where you don't eat at all.
Where you don't even eat at all, right? So that's how it gets to a point where it affects us on a psychological level.
I love this so much. 0861987000. We're going to take a call now from Tebogo. Tebogo Kom Amanskrali. Tebogo has a comment to share here. Tebogo, good morning.
Hi, how's it?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Sorry, I like the fact that you brought your imaginary partner in the conversation. Now I have a problem.
Yeah.
How do you tell a friend about her weird cooking manners?
So what, your friend cooks weird?
I'm struggling, please help.
Emma Bele, what's weird? Tell us, what's weird?
Okay. She normally comes to my place, and I don't mind her coming. Now, the problem that I have, her cooking skills, no, I can't take them anymore. And lucky enough, before I made this call, I called first just to make sure she's not listening.
Oh my God. You're a good friend, though.
No, this is what she does. And normally, I don't know who told her I like people like that. She will dip in chicken breast in olive oil. Olive. You see the liquid that you find in olive.
Emma Bale, Metiale.
Yeah, boy. She will dip in the chicken breast there. Half later, she will take it out and smear it. Feta cheese. Then half later, she will cook. Now, my problem is I can't stand her food anymore. But I can't waste 10 years of friendship.
Is this your friend or is this your partner?
No, she's my friend.
No, the reason I'm asking, and then I think it's it's a fair question, because it could also be, your partner, you probably have to eat their food a little bit more regularly than a friend.
Yes.
No. This. Let me be honest, I'm a bachelor.
Hey.
Now, I have this long friend. We've been friends for over 10 years now. But now, the problem is, she normally comes to my place, and when she's there, she will say, friend, when I would. Let me speak to you. Then she will cook. Mara, no. You can't dip in my breast chicken. No. Come on. Now, the problem is, can food break a friendship?
Sure.
That's my question to home.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, that's Tebogo. Thank you so much, Tebogo. So, where can food break a friendship, and how do you communicate food patterns that you're not happy with?
Wow, that's.
It could be with a partner. It could be with your mother. It could be.
It could be anyone, right? But yes, it can. Well, depending on how we take it, because I don't know why as individuals we are built like this, that we just truly just take everything as an offense, as an insult, as this and this and that. But in essence, I think if you're going to be honest with the person that is in your life, whatever type of relationship that you guys have, and just say, no man, it's okay, right? And I don't think it can break a relationship as long as you state your feelings that, you know what, I'm not happy with this particular thing or how you are preparing this. Because imagine maybe this friend of 10 years could truly be enjoying what she's doing, you know, and maybe just needs like a few brush-ups at ArtOfFeast.
Why
or
are
some
you
tutorials.
enjoying chicken breast that was dipped in olive? What do you even do with olive water? When did you discover that you can eat olive water? Because I mean, it's the first thing you toss out,
Of
right?
course.
If you decide,
Maybe she's making whatever, like
Aye,
maybe
man.
a relish. Like, I don't know.
I mean, I've seen people put like gherkin. That gherkin, what do you call it? Is it what? Can I call it water? It's like a preserve.
Yes, like the preservative, you're right.
And then, you know, might tell her in a stew, but it brings like a tangy
Waffles,
flavor. I'm
are
like,
you serious?
yo,
You see, so like we try a lot of things, you know, and I think also because we've got so many we've got so many platforms that have different types of things and how to prepare this and this and that. And of course, people generally always want to cook to impress, I think.
That's also very true.
Yeah, so I think that's exactly what she's also doing. So, Abuti Tebogo, speak to her. The caller was Tebogo. Yes, just speak to your friend of 10 years. And maybe just, you can maybe bring her for some lessons if you're willing to, and then we can brush
Please.
her up.
That excites me. That when you talk about lessons, that excites me. Is that something that you offer?
Yes, I do. It's
Okay.
part of my what is this? My service offering. Yes,
Okay, so let's go through your service offering actually. So what do you offer in totality?
I'm a private chef.
Yeah.
And I also do like private intimate type of setup events, corporate, and I do health and nutrition coaching.
Okay.
Like
Is it are those one-on-ones? You sound
one-on-one.
personal.
Yeah. Yeah, those are one-on-one. Or also preferably in the long run, I would love to do them on a corporate level, right? To offer that to employees. That is like my greatest passion and what I'm working towards.
Yeah.
Yes, and
It's
I
coming.
also thank you,
coming.
thank you so much. And I also do cooking tutorials.
Okay.
For both adults, teenagers, and kids. Yes.
I actually think it would be such a nice date as well. Like
Right. And we haven't done that in a very long time, ever since COVID. So I don't know when I'll start again, like, you know, your group ones, especially.
Yes.
Yeah, like with a different type of theme and event.
I love that.
Right? Yeah.
I think
so-
also, you know, you and I spoke about dating rate, right?
Yes,
and I
dating
think
rate.
about my current, they call them talking stages, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
I look at sort of our preferences. You know, he prefers more vegetarian sort of type of things, and then I prefer
nice.
that.
Wow. And what do you prefer?
I think I'm quite seasonal. I mean, I've gone vegan for a year before.
Okay.
I've gone vegetarian for over a year before. So I'm and right now I'm enjoying certain types of meats,
Okay.
right? But now I want to tone down. I want to exit,
Okay.
you know, the meat and just focus just on fish, and maybe here and there have a little bit of red meat to substantiate the protein. But I think the difference is in our cooking styles. So he prefers no spices, no what.
Yeah, like,
And I'm just like, I'll go buffalo.
yeah.
So it would be nice to attend a class.
Of
And then you
course,
both
like a
then
couple.
establish a middle ground.
Absolutely.
Of, this is what we can both accommodate.
So this is like on a day-to-day, like, sorry to be very...
It would be at some point. It would be
Okay.
at some point.
All right. And you feel like, wow. But he's completely vegan, Thoriso. So
Not
how-
completely, but he's like predominantly vegetarian.
Okay. And
Predominantly vegetarian. Okay, I would even say close to vegan because then responds terribly to dairy. So that is there's no dairy milk, no dairy
Yeah.
anything that can be included in these foods.
I think, to be honest, in your case, because that is his preference, right?
Yeah, and for health
And
purposes
for health
as well.
purposes
Yeah.
as well. So with somebody who's in that level of what they want to consume themselves, it's very rare to find anybody trying to convince them or trying to change the way they perceive their reality and how they want to take care of themselves and their nutritional value and how they would like to consume the food and the preparation. So from my end, it is always ideal rather to use fresh herbs just to season the food a bit. Yes. So that is another alternative, because remember, with fresh herbs, they are almost vegetables, right? They don't have any form of seasoning, just the flavor. It just enhances the flavor. For instance, if you're going to put coriander and thyme and let me say bay leaves, if you're going to prepare your couscous, right? If you're going to put thyme, bay leaves, and oregano and all these things in the preparation method of a couscous, that flavor is there and it makes the food very tasty, right?
Okay.
So liwena, it is something that you can later get to enjoy. If in the couscous you're gonna put your sun-dried tomatoes, you chop them and you put them, that is still flavor, but you're not adding any seasonings to the meal. You understand?
I get it.
So
I get it.
if you put gherkins, you put olives and all these things into the same thing, you both can still enjoy them. And there's still going to be some love in the relationship.
You see, and this is now when you mentioned that you offer, tutorials and stuff, especially for people like Deboho, once again.
Yes.
You don't know how to bring the message about.
Absolutely.
You can book a lesson.
Yes.
Say, Chomi, let's go.
Absolutely, you can.
And how do we do that? How do we book lessons?
You can on my Instagram account.
Yeah,
I've got an Instagram account. Is ArtOfFeast.
Okay,
by Chef
ArtOfFeast. Yes, I've got your Instagram account here. So it's ArtOfFeast. It's ARTOF and then FEAST.
FEAST, yes.
There we go. So it's ArtOfFeast on Instagram, and you will see there's a link here that you can click on, and that link takes you to directions to bookings and contact details as well. You're going to be excited about what's being offered here. You're going to be excited about all the images that have been shared, and I think very exciting as well. Gomolemooratile, one of the latest pictures that Chef Gomo has here is Gomolemooratile Gopane with a beautiful salad. Things that, because we crave that sometimes, as you said.
Of course, we do. We really do. And also remember, there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Absolutely not.
What do you call this food? The ones that have good good form of gluten.
Oh,
gluten, gelatin, right? Tlhakwana, right? Yes. They've got great gelatin, and gelatin is also good for your bones and all these things. So you would recommend it for, especially Hanzo, you would recommend to have things like that once a week, twice a week, whatever the case might be. Generous amount of consumption at a balanced level. So these food, there's nothing wrong with them.
I like that. No, yes. I like that.
And also you can see even the portion, even if you're going to have you can have your barb, starch is good. You can have a certain portion, and also
no, 100%. It's for plating purposes.
Just for plating purposes, yes.
But I appreciate this. I mean, the way you did it as well. I appreciate it because it's sometimes, at least that creativity and things just taste different, but they're great, and they're the same old things that we're used to as well,
right? Yes, because remember, with the transition and the changing of the world, we are told, not even we are told, we get to believe that our foods are no longer as delicate as what we know them to be, right? Because of the things that we get to see. Because even if I have to be honest, this is not the type of food that I have any interest in making, right? But because you get to grow, and you get to grow also in your craft, and you get to grow in your own culture, and you also want to experience preparing these type of things, because for me, truly, it wouldn't be something that I'll wake up and say, I'm gonna make this.
Yes.
So it comes with time, because like I stated, when you are eating a certain type of food, some of these things you just genuinely just don't want them in your dietary.
Yes.
So, and like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. So we get to learn as we grow, and we do better.
No, 100%. And that's Chef Gomo who's joined us this morning. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For joining us this morning. And we hope we get to hear your voice a whole lot more during the day on Power Weekend Breakfast and all the other, daytime shows as well. Just sharing some of these nuggets, because I think, you did quite a bit for some of us who just, as well as mentally, right? Just the journey again to say that it starts somewhere. It starts mentally. It starts by the heart. It starts somewhere.
Absolutely.
It's not just something that you just decide to go to a grocery store and decide to buy certain foods today and then be late. It just works out. It's ArtOfFeast on Instagram. That is ArtOfFeast. And when you click on the link on Chef Gomo's page, you'll then see where. But again, you'll see the directions, you'll see the contact details as well if you'd like to make bookings. I'm excited to make bookings.
They can also DM, maybe just to make things easier. Yes.
So you can also DM.
Only for food.
Only for food. Only for food. Only for food are we doing this. So we're going to. I'd love to do this with my family as well. I'd love to do this with my family. That
would be nice, like a family type of day,
family
and just
outing.
bonding, right?
Exactly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no. And I also do that. And like I say, Thoriso, will keep you posted. Let's just work a bit now and try to get good space now.
100%.
Like I stated, with COVID, a lot of things changed. And we're hoping that things can start being more afloat and we can start waving and doing nice things, right?
No,
family,
definitely.
Couples, friends, and.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I appreciate all your time. I wish you all the best as well.
I appreciate it
and
so much.
Wait to see you again.
I appreciate your time. I appreciate your generosity and for having me here. And thank you so much to all the listeners.
Thank you so much. And that's our conversation with Chef Gomo. It was on food, nutrition, communication with food, but we had to tap into other spaces and bring in all this sort of. Food is an entire ecosystem, right? It's not just the one part of it. 7 minutes past 2:00.
You've been listening to a Power 98.7 podcast. For more podcasts, visit power987.co.za or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.